Tattoos have come a long way from being exclusively known as symbols of rebellion to becoming mainstream expressions of identity and art for a lot of people. The art has existed for so many years, and the earliest evidence of it existing dates back to 5000 BC, when it was discovered on mummified preserved skin. Now people from all over the world are drawn to it, and for quite distinct reasons.
For a lot of people, getting a tattoo was a coming of age thing, or it represented something.
I was 18, a little bit silly, just wanted one because everyone else was getting one.
A lot of people used to get them just as like symbols or names and things like that, and now you can have them as big pieces of art, can't you?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm quite a creative person, so I think like displaying bits of art on my body kind of works for me.
Yeah, I like the art.
The historical side to it is the most interesting part to me, and that's why I like it the most.
For me, they're just an extension of my personality.
Yeah,
I like to just show people what I enjoy and what I'm about, and they're just like, this is me. You don't have to talk to me if you don't want, but you can see what I am.
It's a little bit of like a culture, so you'll be able to spot another person with tattoos and then immediately you have something to talk about with them, which is really nice. It's like a little community.
Tattoos mean different things to different people. While some are simply for aesthetics, others mark important life events.
This one says mother yourself.
It's actually below a lot of self-harm scars. So past trauma,
Rough upbringing as well, and just finding that strength. That's, you know, I have to mother myself, like my priority number one. So that one's quite important to me.
The significance is my two kids that I represent, because I play sports. So I use this to keep me going and keep me motivated, because I only play sport for them and myself.
growing up I was always told you wear your heart on your sleeve, so I kind of thought I'll wear my heart on my finger instead. It's just a reminder of one of my best friends, because that was always her symbol next to her name in my phone. Now she's with me forever, and it's also the vein in my little finger that connects straight into the heart arteries. So she's always in my heart in some way.
This one here, there, she is a gypsy lady, but she is an Afro-Caribbean lady, so that signifies me as being a Caribbean lady. But then I have the 3 roses, the English roses, which signifies the English in me. And the reason there's 3 is because there's me and my partner, Dave. That's like 30 years of friendship, looks like.
Every person with a tattoo carries a story with them, be it a chapter of their lives or a symbol of something important to them. In modern society today, the tattoo industry has evolved in so many ways. This film will introduce you to some characters who will provide insights into what the culture of tattooing looks like today, both for the creators and the bearers of this art.
Tattooing's been a major part of my adult life.
I had a friend, one of my best friends, who asked me to design a tattoo for him, and he basically took it to the artist, who later on became my mentor.
I used money from my 18th birthday to buy my first equipment, and it was ever since then, it was the sort of centre of my universe.
Despite the conceived acceptance of tattoos in Western society, they still carry stereotypes.
We used to say that, you shouldn't get your hands and your face tattooed because, one day you might have to work in a bank. I don't think that matters anymore.
And depending on how heavily tattooed you are, there's still that stigma.
And when I was younger, as a young woman, I got stopped an awful lot because I've got dragon wings on my back. I've got tattooed, and I used to get stopped a lot in the street to talked about. But now I don't get stopped at all. So I think that shows how tattoos have become more normalised.
Yeah. I've been stopped twice today.
Today?
Today.
What for?
My tattoos.
I've never been judged to say, but I've been with people, and they've got a lot of tattoos on their neck and things, and I've seen the looks that they get, and there's still a lot of people who just, like this, and it's like, get out of it, will you, mate?
I suppose what he's trying to say is that I guess like there is a lot of judgment.
There has also been people who have seen them and gone, oh God, no, you'll never get a job, you'll never do this, you'll never do that. And I'm like, well, I'm in a pretty good job, so I think I'm okay. But it's just one of those things where people still see tattoos as like a stigma.
In the past, tattoos were associated with all sorts: punishment, bravery, spiritual devotion, and crime.
It was a very different industry than it is now. The 90s specifically were very much about money laundering.
Or you used to in the 80s, like movies, the bad guys would always be covered in tattoos.
Yeah.
It was, bearded, ugly, fat, heavy set kind of guys that went out and ran around on motorcycles and threatened people at the weekends. And so it became a bit of a challenge for people, that they were manly enough to get a tattoo, that kind of idea. And it was at the time predominantly male dominated, both from the tattooist side of things and the client side of things. Tattoo studios were cash only. People would come in, it would be a walk-in service. You wouldn't take an awful lot of details, or if you did take some details, it wasn't mandated in any way, shape or form by the government. So it wasn't uncommon for people to come in after a weekend at the clubhouse and bring with them £1,000 that they'd made from doing whatever. And you were to fabricate a story whereby you'd done a big piece for a walk-in, and that money could then be banked as legitimate.
There are now more styles of tattoos than ever before, compared to what used to be the norm.
I came into a time when there was a style that was booming in the very early 2000s called neo-traditional. So it was a lot of bold, heavy colour and traditional style tattooing. Japanese crane, I still need to get these finished actually, on that side. So this was done, this was just during COVID times. This is by an artist called Barry Breathwaite.
At the time it was mainly what we term tribal tattoos that were popular.
So this is about 7 years old. This was done by a tattooist called James Hastings. And then the back was done also by Stuart Hunter.
It was visually spiky sort of flow patterns. Where I kind of came into it was after that had become massively popular, and then people were looking at alternative versions of that. So you'd get Marquesian styled tribal, you'd get things that were more like Maori style, but done by or created by white people in response to seeing it on more native cultures.
I still have a love for colour work, traditional work, but I'm really into like heavy dark black work now. I don't know, it's completely flipped, because I feel like if I told myself 5 years ago, like what's your preferred style, I'd be like neo-trad, traditional tattooing all the way, and now it's like black work, yeah, pretty much that illustrative really.
I like just silly things, I like bands and comedy stuff.
This is from like a meme. The meme is called Stonks.
I have got a Japanese goddess on my calf and there's a Japanese goddess on my arm, so there's a bit of a running theme with mine.
Sarah Lewis runs a private home studio called Sacred Coven, and she describes herself as witchy and weird. Personally, I think she's the happiest person I've met in a long time. Starting out as the only black tattooist in Nottingham, it wasn't the easiest for her.
There's a very, very sparse amount of tattooists in the Midlands, so at the time I started, I was in a not even predominantly, a white-run studio. When
I started tattooing, it was very exclusionary. People would be turned away for being a different ethnicity, of being gay, for being just somebody that was too normal or whatever else as well. It was just kind of anti-everything, and there was definitely a strong sort of there was a strong racist side to it.
My mentor actually said to me, like when I first started tattooing, look, this industry is racist. You are going to have, as a woman, a black woman, people are not going to think that you are a tattooist here. So just be vigilant with that. But along my way of leaving my apprenticeship and moving in different studios, I never experienced racism from clients, but I still unfortunately did experience it from my peers. It didn't instill like insecurity in my blackness, but what I found is artistically it did hinder me a little bit, thinking like, am I weird, in the sense of like, is this acceptable as a black woman to see things and draw things and then translate it into tattooing as well when there was no one else around me. It felt really very isolating.
Although there are now about 3 other black tattooists in Nottingham, it's still a pretty small group.
So one tattoo, you'd have seen it, the sun, used to be red and orange and yellow, and it's been tattooed 3 times with the colour, but every single time the pigment in the skin just fades the colour.
People don't unfortunately know how to tattoo dark skin. There's a lot of misconceptions about how to tattoo dark skin, which is pathetic.
Because I'm mixed race, I feel like the tattooists, they didn't really have trouble tattooing me, but I do have a friend who's darker than me, and I feel like he did struggle tattooing her because obviously she's darker, so it wasn't really seen after it. Even now it's completely faded.
We need to have more artists and more representation on darker skin, but I think there's a lot of people who are tattooing that can't explain to their client that they're not educated enough to work out what works on their skin. There's different styles, don't get me wrong, that are not going to be feasible on darker clients just due to the fact of the skin tone being different. However, it's imperative that you either learn colour theory if you're doing colour, or you work out how to tattoo skin if you're struggling with line work. As an artist, when you look at a canvas and you have a canvas in front of you, you learn your tools and your craft of how to make your art. So I feel like it's such a disservice as an artist that you're not going to look at a canvas effectively because this is who this person is and think about, how can I develop my craft and how can I make this work? There needs to be more emphasis on learning about it and changing these stereotypes, because as this industry exists and as big as it becomes, it's always evolving. But we still have, I would say, way over 70% of Instagram is predominantly white people being tattooed. So we need to change it. We really do.
I think now tattooing is predominantly female headed or female fronted, but in the past it was very sexist. You know, the tattooists were men. It was a male environment. There were women that were tattooing in there at the time, but they had to be tough, really tough. And I think it was mid-2000s when I met my first female tattooist.
It's still very heavily saturated in male tattooists, a very archaic way of just misogynistic and everything else in between. But it's definitely coming on.
And I think now it's very accepting. And I think there's an awful lot of more progressive personalities involved.
Like many others, the tattoo industry has been impacted by economic changes, with the current recession forcing many businesses to close.
So if you do 4 hours of tattooing that week, that's 31 hours that you need to put into marketing, to advancing.
If you're not doing it at home at least and doing something on top of your day-to-day 9 to 5.
Because of the economic climate, tattooing has become very popular since COVID.
It was a lot more socially accepted. It was something that was exciting for people to do, and so there was a lot more demand to become a tattooist. Instead of it being a fringe thing, it was now something that was exciting and different and a bit rock star-like.
Was that a good or bad thing?
In the long run, a bad thing. In the short term, a good thing. I think as time's gone on, there was so many people that got into tattooing at that time that they really flooded the market. So we went from there being 1 tattoo studio, maybe 2 tattoo studios in a big city, to, I mean, there's probably 30 in Nottingham easily. And that became something that was that big expansion.
And the increase has kind of made it seem like there is not a professionalism around it, because people can kind of start tattooing from home.
There was lots of shops to go at. It was cheaper to tattoo for a short while. And then since then, the economy's declined. And now it's declined. We've gone from a period of being very busy to very quiet. And I think that's reflected in the rest of society as well. I think it's just because we were at a real high before hitting a real low, it's been very stark and very distinct.
you have to really work hard to be living very comfy of tattooing now, I think, unless you are managing to market yourself quite well.
Hi there. I've just got some flyers to hand round. Am I alright to leave some up here? Perfect. Thank you ever so much. I retired in 2003 for medical reasons. I have a brain tumour, so I'm incapable of working. It's okay. I like to pick the spots. I still own a studio, and what I try to do for that is I try and help the artists that are here to get more business. And the only reason I'm in any way, shape or form qualified to do that is because it did happen during my career a few times. Difficult to say what the future will hold. I think there was a lot of people that came in at a time when it was very prosperous, and maybe too many people. And so now I think there's going to be a contraction in the industry somewhat. But now that there's so many people tattooing, I think you have to be the best to even get into it. And so I think that's where that lies, is there's always room for people that are better than you. There's no room for people that are worse than you.
Do you miss tattooing?
I do, yeah, I do miss tattooing. It was such a big part of my life for the entirety of my adulthood post the age of 18, so yeah, desperately miss it.
I feel like it's an absolute privilege to be able to be chosen to have people message me and say I want your work on my body. I don't even know why I'm getting emotional, but I just love it so much, and it makes me so happy that I can do that. It's been a really hard, long journey, but at the same time, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
I still love the industry. I still love the people in it. It's still something that I want to be around, and it's something that I think I was good at during my working life, and I want to try and continue that and pass on what knowledge and information I can whilst I'm still here.
In the end, tattoos are more than just ink. They celebrate our individuality and human spirit. And even as the industry changes, the heart of tattooing stays the same. It's about the stories we carry in them, stories that will be forever etched in our skin.